Hello, Gravitrons. I'm more gravity. Let's play chess. Trying to sneak this game in before kickoff for the 2026 FIFA World Cup. There are people in Mexico City cheering on Mexico against South Africa, and that game starts in about 20 minutes. So let's see if I can review this game uh, thoroughly, but also within enough time that we can take our seats for FIFA World Cup soccer. In the United States, it's being broadcast on Fox. Maybe elsewhere, I'm not entirely sure. All right. I had the white pieces. I played an accurate game. This Most of this is good stuff. Um, and this part which shows my progression as a player. Without further ado, let's go. I played e4, e6, so we're in the French defense. And I like to go into this idea of I think it's called an accelerated Panov attack. It happens in the Caro-Kann too. You can have pawns on c4 and e4, and they're both helping to dissuade black from playing pawn to d5. You add a knight on c3, and that intimidation is strong. My opponent played d5 right away just to liquidate. We're going to be playing a more open game as a result. And we have this usual capture on d5 with queen takes d5, and white will play knight c3 most often, gaining a tempo while developing. That's good for white. Black retreats, but gets this, like I say, mostly open middle game. It's open middle game, honest tactics. Both sides should probably prioritize development, kingside development, and then most likely a kingside castle for white. Black has a little more choice, but probably still a kingside castle. White will not queenside castle because of the missing c2 pawn, most often anyway. Not okay. d4, and we see that white has better development than black. Knight f6 is fine. Knight f3 is fine. Pawn to c6 is interesting. I think my opponent just, not just, but with wise mind, blocked attacks like bishop b5 check. Pawn c6 is sort of these like calm, quiet moves that diffuses or prevents a lot of white aggression on the queen side early. So it's not a bad move. It's a little bit I wouldn't have thought of it here at this point in the game. Like on move number, when does black play? Move number 7, black's 7th move. But it cuts out, like I say, these aggressive knight attacks and the aggressive bishop b5 check, as well as the aggressive queen a4 check, all in one go, and black can focus on development after. So this helps against aggressive queenside stuff. This helps white against aggressive kingside stuff. White's going to make a nice battery here on the a2, g8 diagonal, aiming at the weak f7 pawn, which that battery can be strong on its own, and even still, knight e5, or in some cases, knight g5 adds yet another attacker. So black should focus on getting castled, and soon. And he does, with the best move on the board, bishop e7. I agree with the evaluating engine, which I believe is Stockfish 18. I agree with my opponent. So bishop e7, best move. Queen b3. Okay, so the computer doesn't like it all that much because most of you, look, kingside castles and this attack on f7 has all but fizzled out. But queen b3 also requires black to keep under constant attention his babysitting of the pawn on b7. Not just because of the pawn on b7, but more so because of the rook on a8. This queen's going to capture on b7. She's also looking to capture the rook on a8. And it's just another thing to keep track of mentally. Not only that, but black doesn't have all that many options that are impressive against queen b3. Bishop e6, then bishop takes e6, f takes e6, queen takes e6, and white is up a pawn. I'm not against that. So, yeah, I think queen b3 is maybe, practically speaking, a strong move by white here. Castles. Castles is the move there. Black needs defenders on f7. Knight e5. Pouring on more and more pressure. Pressure doesn't work unless there's pressure. Okay? The white plays knight to e5. There has to be pressure in order for pressure to work. One of the ways pressure works is by overwhelming a square. Another way that pressure works is by inducing mistakes. I didn't catch this, but we see here that the queen has made a mistake on that square, and knight takes f7 was not the way for it. So let's take a look. I'm not exactly sure. I looked ahead in the coloration of the notations that the computer provided. That's how I knew that this mistake was coming. But pressure doesn't defeat my point. Pressure still does create mistakes. Queen e7, queen e8 is apparently a mistake. I tried knight takes f7 in the game. I'm wondering if bishop takes f7 check was better. No. So where are we finding an Achilles heel here? Just simply castles. That's the other thing about pressure. Sometimes it's long term. Now with knight to d7, white has options. We could capture on f7. We're not gaining material even after rook takes knight takes f7, rook takes f7. Sorry. Knight takes f7, rook takes f7, bishop takes f7 check. Queen takes f7, queen takes f7, king takes f7, and overall it's just the mismatched pieces are equal in value. Rook and pawn for knight and bishop. You see that the evaluation bar believes white to be ahead by about a pawn. And some of this is due to better mobility, like this bishop on c1 has not moved yet this game, but look at his options, right? This is a bishop that he's in the game, he's developed even though he's on a starting square. All right. So I captured on f7 after rook takes f7. I'm wise maybe to castle, and I'm not rushing things. Like you can tell my speech gets pressured when I talk about exciting positions, or that's how I am a lot of the time. I get really excited about things, but in my play I have to realize that sometimes the most hurried attack is not the best attack. I think I did well with that here after trading knight and putting the rook in a pinned position against his king. The pickup of the exchange on f7 can happen later. It doesn't have to happen right away. We know that knight takes d5 or knight to d5 could sort of threaten to unseat this, but after knight takes d5, pawn takes d5, bishop takes d5, white is doing even a little bit better than a few moves before, with the rook still pinned to the king. Okay. So rook to e1. There's nothing tangible about rook to e1. We're just going to pin black's dark squared bishop on e7 to his queen. It's not a win. It's not a win. No forced win yet, but we're going to ramp up pressure, move after move. And here we go. Knight to b6. I play. Noticing I'm not even out of calculation here. This is not all the way calculated. It could have been. I'm about at my stretch calculating a move like this, but I also The knight is threatening my bishop on c4. Not good, not good, not good, not good. So, okay, yeah, it's definitely time to initiate hostilities on f7 again. So bishop takes f7 check, of course queen takes f7, and now, as my queen is protected, as black's queen may not move off this diagonal, then the bishop on e7 is free for the taking. And I'm glad to say about my development as a player, when a tactic presents itself, I'm there. So rook takes e7, strong move. The queen, white goes up a piece. It happened, it occurred, and I took advantage right away. And knight to d5 just kind of ends the matter altogether. Let's play this out in practice. This knight is here very long term. It will be very difficult. Well, get the rook. What I'm thinking right now is I'm not wasting my queen on this knight. I got dark squared bishop. The pawns that could threaten this knight off of the square on d5, they're off the board. So that leaves the rook. The king can't do anything because the pawn's protecting. It's not even a legal move. So that's on the main side of things. Is we're going to have to sacrifice the exchange, which I can do. I have enough material. If that wasn't possible, then white will have to aim at undermining the pawn chain that supports this knight, or just completely playing around it, which is difficult to do. This knight is, I think, worth a little bit more than a rook right now. So you see, in this position, there's not much to do. Things are kind of just where they are. So I notice perhaps moving pawn to g7 gets the pawn off of the same color square as my opponent's bishop and creates a square on, did I say g7? I meant g3. Pawn to g3 gets the pawn off of the square that has the same color square as my opponent's bishop. And my king may now move to g2, where he cannot be the subject of a back rank checkmate. So basically the idea is you want to make, in these positions that are kind of like blah, look at this board, there's not all that much going on. You want to just make a move that will probably save you a move later on in the game. It doesn't have to. But I mean, what else is white gonna do? I can put my queen on b4 to blockade this pawn. That seems like a lot of queen for only one square of blockage. So I'm gonna play pawn to g3. I also want to mention, just in case So that there's no confusion. I'm playing against a computer right now. Yeah, I would never be highlighting squares, or speaking my ideas out loud, or showing lines of attack or anything like that. But instead of that, I may, because I'm playing against a computer, and the computer don't care. So between me and the computer, I want it. Computer doesn't care. I want it wins. That's that kind of thing. You would never do this in a game. How about never? I don't do it anymore in a game. I used to do it a little bit on lead chess, but it was also like, I don't know. It just doesn't seem right to be highlighting squares in red while you're playing chess. Which one are you doing? Highlighting squares or playing chess? Okay, so all that being said, this is against the computer. Computer doesn't care. I'm learning about uh, moves that can be made sort of when the mood is dull. I'll play king to g2. There's no reason not to. Yes. What the? Pawn to b4. I'm surprised about pawn to b4. Okay, we also should come up with a plan here. Queen to c5, that should be fine. Now, Black's bishop has an outpost, and it's actually really strong. Jordan. You see that the game my opponent resigned was indeed lost for black, even again, when black takes over. The, the game my opponent lost as black is indeed a loss for black, even when computer strong chess moves black's pieces from the resigned position onward. There's an accurate game. I'm gonna be leaving this broadcast soon. Guys, a good accurate game. Thank you all for watching. Thank you, Gravitrons. I'm More Gravity. Have a great night.